Education Council, ACEC, is pleased to welcome the weekly joint collaborative broadcast of Coach Corner. The objective of the Coach's Corner is to provide coaching education and expert views, information, oral and practical assistance, while helping to educate those seeking to understand and to become actively involved in the sport of cricket, nationally and internationally. The segment of the Coach's Corner will run from 6:15 to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and will feature Jatin Patel, Cricket Hall of Famer and multi-sport coach, administrator, and director of the Cricket Hall of Fame. Good afternoon to you, Coach, or should I say good evening to you, Coach. Welcome to another edition of the Coach's Corner.
Good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Welcome, and nice to have you back with us. Today's topic that we hope to get our teeth into deals with the subject of discipline, attitude, temperament, argumentation, and so on. We're hoping we can challenge the coach to, share with us his breadth and depth of knowledge. Coach, my first question to you on the subject is this. Discipline is a word often used in many life situations. When discipline is used in cricket, what exactly is being described?
Well, when you say discipline, there are a variety of factors, we call it, falls under the discipline. But when we look at the sports and specifically for the cricket, the few discipline factors are very important. For example, the timing. Let's say if you are part of the team and coming for the practice or games, the discipline based on the time means how sharp you are to come on time or ahead of time, which is requested by the team. Means it's your determination and commitment to be part of the team and do whatever it takes under well-disciplined manner. Means you are always coming or going at time or before time. That's one part. Second thing is, when we deal with the team sports, there is a lot of procedures or protocols we have to follow. That includes the restrictions and the things you are allowed to do or things you are not allowed to do. So in particular, the things you are allowed to do has not much to do anything at all. But discipline takes its toll when you look at those items which says you are not allowed to do certain things. So that's another part of it, participation and engagement type of discipline. Then we have the off-the-field situation. How you get along with the other players if you are a player. And that also demands discipline. The reason for that is how you build relation and how you communicate with your teammates. Then there is a action-based disciplines, means the performance related. That includes your roles, responsibility, and how seriously you are taking them or considering them to be part of the team. And so on. There are many other ways you can say discipline can be enforced, impacted. But discipline is the most important thing in any sport. And because of that, the coaches, management, administration, everyone is looking for higher standard in discipline. In professional cricket, this discipline can go beyond what I explained to you, which is the most commonly used at the youth level or national level. But at the international level and professional level, this discipline goes beyond those simple things we widely or commonly see. The one of those is definitely the contract and your commitment. That includes signing them on timely basis and following that contract. That takes a lot to be in a discipline. There is a procedures and the protocols need to follow by everyone in terms of the reporting or working or communicating with the team management, team administration, or board itself. And in those all situations, discipline is the key. There is also a discipline in the media matters. We have seen a lot in the past, like the players are talking something open to public and not taking the permission from the authorities, or sometimes they bypass the authorities because now they have objection and they like to blame the administration or management, something like that. And those are falls under the discipline. At the same time, whatever the dispute happens or situation arise in terms of the contract or in a money transaction or the normal high level communication, those decisions are key, that the discipline is followed in whatever we do. So discipline is the most important thing to be part of any team sport.
Thank you, Coach. Coach, can you coach a player to be disciplined?
Well, this discipline part is definitely critical part, but at the same time, if the player is not mature, and if you think the player has made a mistake without knowledge, means the player is innocent. And in that situation, if the player is disciplined, yes, coaches and mentor can work around. But when you have a player who has intentionally compromised and fall off from the discipline, it will be a difficult task for anybody to coach.
So, in that regard, is it possible that lack of discipline by one team member can affect the outcome of a match?
Yes, and that is a part of the process. And now there are new laws are implemented in cricket, which is giving them the red card, just like the soccer used to have. The soccer still has it. Once you got the red card, you are out of the action, means you have to leave the field, and your team has to play one shot. Going a little bit further on this one, cricket originally started to show this red card, just like football and soccer, to discipline the player for any wrongdoing, perform on the field, I can say. Means umpire takes the decision based on what they have done on the field. But then recently, I see that red card is also given because of the overall team discipline matter. In coming straight to the point, is the CPL situation very recently, because of the slower over rate, the team was penalized and red card was given to a player. We're not going in that discussion, but this red card situation and discipline is definitely harm the team, because as soon as someone get the red card or discipline and not allowed to being part of the active game, next game or practices, the team is going one shot, and it can definitely take a risk on the performance too. What happens, your main batter or main bowler get disciplined and your team has to go without it? It is, the outcome can change just because of the one player discipline.
So, in that light, we see how important team situation is. But does team discipline translate into team success?
It's a very difficult call. If the player is disciplined, single player or two, you can have options to bring them back or bounce back or fix that discipline issue, not to repeat the similar offense or avoid or prevent the future situation. But when you have team involved, it's become very difficult because team is not a one or two individual. We are looking at a group of people. Usually in cricket, it's 11. And in that situation, it's the toughest challenge for any coach or mentor or administrator or management to fix those issues.
So, does the age of players or team members, their maturity and experience affect their level of discipline?
Definitely, because the players who are seniors, I'm specifically targeting a lot of legends who has played game for a longer term, means many years compared to some young ones or inexperienced players or the lower age players. They do take advantage because they know what they're doing. They know what it takes to be in the team, and they also know their roles and responsibility as well as their status. So, in the sense, more the mature players we have less issues with the discipline.
If there are any questions from any member of the panel, any questions from anyone? Donna, Leon? I think. No, okay. So I'll move on. Let's talk about attitude. Is player attitude related to their emotional state, mood state, or mental state?
The attitude can be activated or get activation through different things. But the most of the time, it does come from the mood. And it's a part of the mental situation, we call it the mindset. And it can get disturbed and it can definitely impact. The attitude is the one, it has we call it the scaling about how much tolerant you are on certain things. To give you the example is whatever happened in a game. Let's say one is a frustration. Everyone has a different limit. There are people who can get into the quickly and easily. We usually call it short temper people. And then there are some people so cool and stay calm for over a period. We label them, they are tough at mental. But in reality, it is their control over their own attitude. And that is what it's holding those range, whether it's a short time or another is a longer time. And it all depends on toleration, how much or how capable you are to tolerate certain things when the things does not go your way or the way you expected. And that is where attitude becomes the key factor. And I will say it is a first one to mark it down like any player going off the decision. It's usually start with the attitude.
Thank you, Coach. Leon, yes, I wanted to chime in with a question. You know, Coach, sometimes there's need for you to really make some strong decision to discipline a player by suspending him. from play for a certain length of time. He or she might have some friends also in the midst and who will urge the folks to not to support the captain in his move. Now, how would you handle a situation like that?
Well, this is a part of the team building process. We call it team cohesion. In general, they call it team chemistry or team bonding. There are different way to label it, but that is the part where this situation becomes serious for the coaches and mentors to find out what the team players' behavior, especially their attitude. Number two, how they are committed in terms of that seriousness and commitment with the good attitude. That becomes more important. The reason for that, if you have the issues with the attitude, it can be fixed, but it's not something coaches or mentors are doing. It's a two-sided job. They can try their best because it is possible to fix the attitude. But at the same time, the heavier side to change their attitude is a player. Are they willing to change their attitude? Are they willing to understand what they have done before they are under the disciplinary action, which means they are penalized for something, right? And being a natural as a human, and I'm talking my soccer experience now is dance is the healing, believe it or not, especially in youth sports, when the player who really wants to and love to play, they don't like the bench, believe it or not. So when something goes wrong, you must put them on a bench. You don't need to preach them. You don't need to talk with them. Give them some time so they can think on their own what they need. So they are bench. And this is the time, as I say, time is the healing on the bench. And this player, if they really wants to play, they will come up with their own solution. Solution is most likely, in most cases, is a very simple. They will say, hey, coach, I made a mistake. I'll make sure it will not happen. And that is probably the most of the coaches love to hear. No one out there wants to keep a player on the bench. But at the same time, we must control them. It is just like your normal life. We all drive a car on highway, right? That doesn't mean we'll be driving at the maximum speed all the time. There are surrounding, there are situation comes, and during the time, we have to put the brakes and resume back to the whatever speed we can. But those are the adjustments we are making on highway. Same thing in our normal life. When the things doesn't go right, somebody has to put the brake. And that is where this discipline comes. And yes, I see that your concern. What happens if this player has a couple of teammates and wants to do support as a strong support just because of the friendship, not looking at the game situation or team situation or not even understanding why my teammate is being disciplined. If that sort of things happens, then the first thing, in my opinion, is to take care of those people who are supporting this act. Because we don't know why these people are supporting right away, right? Sometimes they may be right. What they have seen may be unfair, something biased. There's a lot of things are possible. So without knowing a root cause of the situation, it is not right way to discipline those who are supporting. Instead, find the reason why they are supporting and what is the objection, what they did not like, and why they are supporting, and what do you want out of it. The bottom line is what? We all get into the disagreement or oppose something for a reason, right? So in this situation, if I have to, I'll go behind those people who are supporting first to find out why exactly they are in support for, and how long they'll keep continuing, what it takes to take them out of this support and say, hey, I'm happy, coach. Now you deal with the player. And that way you are trying to eliminate the exposure in terms of more disagreements in team, and then eventually come down to the player and he can fix it. So that there is a harder time for the coaches when such situation happens, because now you're dealing with multiple players, not just one player.
Allow me to follow up a little bit on that, sure. Because sometimes, coach, you've gotten a coach, a player that was disciplined. He's replaced by a player who was on the bench for a long time, and he was brought on the team, and he excelled. Now, how would you handle that situation? Would you bring up the player that is disciplined, or the player that you have replaced the disciplined player with?
It depends on the coach and team situation and about the team position in the game. Especially if you look at the soccer related, once the player is disciplined and if you see the bench player is doing really good job, I will say most of the coaches are not concerned about the disciplined player to bring back in a quick time. Same thing with the look basketball, same thing you look at the football, I'm talking American football, they all follow the same. The discipline is not something can be fixed with any remedies. It's not something that player did something and you put like 15 minutes on the bench or 30-minute bench and they'll fix it. In other words, if you want this player, I'm talking the disciplined player who is on the bench, and if you want to treat them right, I will say give them time on the bench for the rest of the game, more time to think about it. Because at the same time, if you keep eye on the game and if you see the other player is doing really well for the team, we don't need to be concerned about it. And this longer the time you give them means they have more time to think about it. And believe it or not, the disciplined player who really wants to come back, they are coming much stronger, depends on how much time they are taking on the bench, because they don't like the bench.
Thank you, Leon, for that. Coach, can you read a player's posture, manner, or type of dress wear as indicative of likely attitude or typical of behavior?
It is, that's called a body language. The one first indication you can see, it's definitely how they behave. Means they're actually the mental status. For example, when you see someone, if they are enjoying fun and if they are happy, means they are either smiling or laughing. Simple example. They're having fun, that's why they are laughing. If someone is in a sadness, they are crying. Same thing in a sport. Their mood, their emotions is automatically comes into a physical posture, we call it, the body language, where how they behave, how they act, or how they are responding to their teammates, or how they are in a part of the game. All sort of things you can definitely judge based on your experience and expertise, whether this player is with you 100% or having some issues and not able to tell you. And the same thing, if you look at it, the frustrated player or player he is losing their mind or confidence, you can definitely see right from the body language.
In a match situation, then, what would you do, or what should a player do when confronted by heckling and insults from the spectators or on field opponents?
Well, this is not something impacting your team or related to the action. Now, when you say he has some interaction with the fans, this is the completely non-action related item to me in a team sport. Means this is kind of something happened. His teammate did not do anything, team did not do anything, nothing he has, whatever you see as activated by the game situation. The most likely it's an act of the fan. Either they have done something physically, like throwing object or something, and in most cases, they usually talk about something nonsense, let's say, to trigger the player's head, right? So in this situation, I will say discipline doesn't fix because it's not the player's fault. We all being as a human being, this thing can happen, and everyone has some sort of limit to tolerate this situation. So if that's an incident, we had it a couple of times, and I have not seen in any major sport there they have been disciplined. But looking at our NBA, some of our games in US, if you are getting into the fan, if you're leaving the field to go in the fans area, which is off the field, we call it, all can be disturbing and it can harm you. You may be penalized for it because as a player, they are not allowed to go against the fans directly. Because in that situation, it's a very thin line where the player can get upset or fan can get upset and they can start a physical fight, like throwing punches or pushing each other. And those all can tolerate to the next level. And that is not good for the game. So what is need to be is, I will not penalize the player. And that is what most of the high school and college sports usually coaches tell the players not to leave the field. Anything happens, anything comes to you, you suppose not to leave the field. Stay in the field. Tell the officials what's going on. If it doesn't stop there, tell the coaches what's going on. And the coach's jobs comes here most critical and important. If it is a high school or college level, coach will immediately talk to the AD or ground security or someone to take care of the fan. Because we don't want that situation to escalate to the next level. And when the player is getting distracted, not just distracted, now they are getting into the frustration. And that can spoil both ways. It can uh, create a mess where the game can be stopped or may be stopped for a while. And it's not good thing for anyone. Another way, if you look at the off the field side, one fan is creating the trouble for you, or maybe group of fan is creating trouble. Why you want to stop the game for an entire crowd, which is all over the ground? So there is a way to handle, but coming straight to your point, I will say this is the off the field matter, and the players will not be penalized.
Leon, if you're yeah, I'm here. Are you hearing me? Yes, I am. We've lost Virgil, so maybe you can try. I'm trying, but let me try and get in this question here before it didn't go by me. Because thinking, the coach, what is the most effective way from your experience that will prove or will remedy a situation of one with discipline? What is the most effective way that you have found out over your history of being a coach? What do you think more effective?
You mean, are you trying to say what the coach will do, or are you looking at what the player can do?
Well, listen, I discipline this guy.
Okay.
No, the purpose of disciplining him is because you want every member of the team to be on the same playbook, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And but this guy is going contrary to what you think were the plans of the team, but he consistently do it. How do you, as a coach, what kind of a discipline you use, what method you use to at least solve the problem.
It's a great question. I love it. I will say, if you are coaching this team, and if you see a first offense, let's say, right? If it is a first offense, then you have a little bit work to do. Number one, in my opinion, or if I have to do, is I will give this player enough time to think on his own, which is the bench time. No need to talk, because if you are a coach and if you try to talk with this player in that particular moment, it will create arguments and disagreements, which is drag into a some sort of disagreement for sure. Either side is not getting along kind of situation. If it is a middle of the game, I will not start this conversation or communication, because I have my other 10 players playing and I have few bench players which I can rotate and go for it, especially in soccer. Number two, the most important thing experienced and expert coaches is looking to is the player's ability and potential. We call it the coachable players. If the coachable player is out there and have made mistake and if it is penalized, then I would say it's a time. Give them some time to think on their own, and believe it or not, it's all about self-decision making process. Once the player realizes that person has made mistake, the player must come to a conclusion. This was my fault. This one, what I did was wrong, or I did not follow coach or my teammates, and that is what I'm doing. So there's a self-convinced part of this option is the best thing. You have to wait this moment. It may be few minutes, it may be a little bit longer. Hard punishment doesn't help anything. So it's opportunity. Number two, when the thing's going well, you must read the body language of this player who just being disciplined. The body language spills whether they are getting emotional because of this penalty situation and getting into a attitude issue, we call it, and trying to become a frustrated, anger, throwing objects, talking with the different tone or high tone with the other players, walking away from the bench. Now, these are the behaviors you have to look into, because the good player will not do it. It takes time. Everyone has a reason to go mad. Everyone has a reason to be emotional situation. Everyone has a right to change their mood, but to make sure that it does not create a problem for player as well as teammates, as well as team, and most important is the game. When this happens, the most likely problem can be solved. Number three is the another option. You let it go for the rest of the game. You don't need to bring back this disciplined player into the game. Let it go. We have other players on the bench who can do the job. May not be the same job or better job than your player who is disciplined, but at least you have option. And you don't need to be too loose or slack in this discipline process. You must be a tough. The reason for that, if you really want to teach the player, you must treat. And after a time, you start communication, the clear communication. What happened? What's going on? Why we are? I'm outside the field. You are the outside the field. You're supposed to be inside, but there is a reason behind it. And try to convince that these are not the right thing to do. So it's like depends on how you deal with the player. Sometimes you see the player is like become a mad dog, let's say. He just came out of the field, start throwing things here and there, and he's just trying to start blaming other people, talking loud and screaming at others. Now, this thing you don't want to jump into to do anything. Let it go and try to keep this player away from the environment. Eventually, the good players go in a corner, take their own position, and calm down on their own way. It is impossible when they are in a high tone, high temperature, highly frustrated. Is not something you can do at that point. So the coaches has a different skills and tools to deal with this situation. And most likely depends on the age. If it is a younger age, we have to be a little bit soft and flax in discipline matters because these are the learning process. But when you more go up at the higher level or mature level, yes, discipline need to be tough.
Just to follow up a little bit, normally, sometimes when you have a player that is consistently disrupting and it requires discipline, would it be more sometimes the better process to have a disciplinary committee handle the matter rather than the coach himself?
Yes, that is what it goes to these investigation committees and review committees, especially in cricket. They sometimes bring a temporary panel or a small committee to oversee this situation because it is the two-side problem. Let's say if it is not a game-related or action-related problem, it's something is happening between player and coach, and this may be on field, off the field, or something not related to this. So in this sense, you can't give a full authority to coach because he is on the one side of this issue. And that is the reason we need to have the third party to get into, to understand what's going on, right? And then we can look into. I mean, if you look at a lot of sports, especially when there is a conflict of interest involved, or I will say work ethics being violated, so being unfair and biased, which is normally a case in a lot of youth sports when you have parent coaches or someone, loved one is playing and mom or dad has some sort of authority position in that game administration or management. And in this situation, it's better to have the third eye to look into and decide what needs to be done because you cannot give it to the player and coach or the administrator here. It needs to be someone from outside and come out and say, hey, we reviewed it, we listened both sides, we realize what's going on. We also review the game process, protocol, conflict of interest, ethics, procedures, whatever we have, and then they need to come out with the conclusion. It may be the coach is at the fault. In that sense, they have to talk with the coach and communicate what's need to be done and what they can do preventing in future. And from that particular moment, how they need to get going with the player because of the coach's fault. If it is a player's fault, it's a definitely coach has to sideline for some time, I would say, because he was the part of it, which is escalated to this committee or third party solution here. And let this third party handle whatever the disciplinary actions they need to, and then try to slowly get back to normality. But then coaches has to remember and understand what happened, why it happened, and what we end up. In the sense, we are not keeping in the top of our head to penalize all the time. Give them the chance. If it is a youth, they might change. They might come back different way. And the true thing is like you have to judge the situation, get the assessment, how serious this incident is in terms of the relations, in terms of the communication, in terms of the action and team. And you have to make wise decision based on your assessment.
All right, Denise, I think you have Audley on now. So. Okay, good evening to you, Audley. Welcome back to another edition. Do you have any question for Coach at the moment? No, good evening to you all. No, good evening. All right. Okay, we're still waiting for Virgil. Okay, yeah, follow up with temperament. This is a term that is often used to describe moderation in, say, eating and drinking. But how is temperament related to cricket or other sports?
The most of the thing is temperament is most likely a time and scale both. Means in terms of the time, how quickly they are reacting at certain things. And if they do, what level? Now we are looking at the altitude. Sometimes it's a soft, light, sometimes it's heavy. The easiest way to say is like when someone loses temperament, it's usually definitely derails a lot of things, whatever is going on in that particular moment. The temperament is belong to the players or any human, I would say. That includes coach, assistant coach, and everybody. And that is the most important factor that the coaching world is serious about is how we can control that temperament and limit them from escalating the normal levels. The temperament can change for many reasons, but the good players always try to maintain the level. We cannot say that the coolest person on this planet will never get angry. But there are some get anger in like 3 seconds, 5 seconds, some might take 30 minutes. So there is a limit, we call it, and that is controlled by the temperament.
All right. If a player has an excitable temperament, coach, is that a factor good or bad for the outcome of a match?
It's we just talk about it. Temperament is there in every human. It's a time and what level, at what point, or in what situation the player get into emotional or change mood and becomes mentally either unstable or momentarily in emotion, getting excited and doing something or frustrated doing something, right? And because of that, it becomes very important to contain the temperament. Whatever the level is, whatever the time is, if we know how to do it, and that is where the team environment comes. When we see a player get upset, we have seen in team sport, their teammates, or maybe the close friend who is playing with them, they are come close to, and they try to calm them down or asking them for a help, whatever they need. They usually, in the sports, in early stage of coaching, usually tell if something going on in your head, the best way is get them out. Talk to your teammates, talk to your friends, talk to the coach. And that is the point you feel little bit relief instead of you're still thinking your own way and things like you're going to have a solution. No, you have to change the mood. And there's only a way to change the mood is talk it out. Let's let it go. Don't get into the frustration. Discuss with somebody who thinks or who are comfortable with it. And that may have a solution or some suggestion to get back the normality.
Yeah, let's see, Virgil. Yeah, good afternoon to all the good afternoon to all panelists and good afternoon to all the listeners all over the world. I don't want to cut you, but I'm just watching Barbados win the finals, which is real nice. Okay.
Good.
All right, we'll go back to Coach. Coach, this is like the wrap-up question for you. Can you name one professional player whom you would describe as a disciplined player?
Again, there's a lot of factors or criteria, we call it. You can term this player in discipline section, right? Like timing, performance, behaving, their attitude, their mentality, their mindset, their temperament, and how they get into the emotional. These are all those factors. But if you look at it, there are few outstanding players out there in cricket where they maintain this level of temperament. The key players like MS Dhoni, you can take Sachin Tendulkar, Rahul Dravid. If I have to look into the West Indies, it can be the Brian Lara and Shivnarayan Chandrapur. These are the two examples. What I see, in my opinion, I'm not trying to criticize anyone else, but this couple of player has a more key ingredient to stay calm and be a good sportsman and do whatever it takes to eliminate or prevent the crisis or some issues which may cause because of the temperament, let's say this way. And at the same time, if you have performance, there are plenty of players. Forget about what they do when they are in a field. Forget about what they do when they get emotional, but they are the performer. And they do care what they do. And that means they are in a full control. I will say one example is Virat Kohli. It's absolutely awesome. You can see his mood changes. He does get emotional very quickly. He does talk his teammates, but when it comes to time, he knows what he needs to do. And then that's a beauty. There are a few players out there in West Indies too, including some ballers, especially like holding. I still remember the Malcolm Marshall. These are the people don't get into the temperament situation. The reason behind it, the most important part is instead of getting in temperament and losing your behavior or attitude and get into a trouble or create a trouble or ignite a trouble, these are the player takes the different route or approach. It is called let the action speak. Whatever they want to do it, they will prove it, what they are capable to do. And that's all it takes. You know, one of the beautiful question here, I can tell you one of the good example. I love this Curtly Ambrose. He was being objected for a wristband in Australia. What did he do? That was one of the best spell he put in his life. He took those 6 wickets, right? So it's like same thing, Sachin Tendulkar. I believe it was a 2002 World Cup. This, I think South Africa or Kenyan bowler said something to him because he was out quickly in that game. And look at the next game. He put on century without talking anything. So there's a good thing is about to control your temperament and see how capable you are is let the action speak. Whether you are a batsman or bowler, let the action speak.
Once again, we've come to the end of our time. So I want to thank you, Coach, for your insights, your knowledge and experience. We invite you to join us again next week at the same time, right here on the Cricket Show. There is no doubt that Coach Patel have answers to the questions that you have been asking. Question that says, how did he do that? Or why did he do that? Maybe you will be saying, I am going to do that next time. Thank you so much, Coach, and we look forward to having you back with us again.
Thank you all.
Next time.